Finally.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're talking about how we know that this is, in fact, a season in our life, and the suffering's not going to last forever. And we've talked about this. One of our favorite verses, one of your favorite verses in the Bible, is a phrase mentioned several times, especially in the book of Joshua. And that phrase is, "And it came to pass."
That's right.
And so I want to talk this morning with the folks tuning in today. It's good to have you guys here on Instagram Live. And we're talking about this, how we know this is just a season. So how has that verse in particular ministered to you over the years, Dad?
Well, everybody faces trouble, right? There's nobody on this earth that has never faced any problem. Jesus faced all kinds of problems, much worse than most of us could ever possibly think of. But what we have to understand, when problems do come, they don't stay. Mm-hmm. That the one thing that you can count on in life is change. Everything's changing. The definition of growth is change. And so everybody's changing. And so when I read that Bible and Joshua, and I see that verse, the people had been in prison, in slavery. They came out. They went up to the Jordan River. It's at flood stage. And they said, how in the world can we get across? And Joshua says, and it came to pass that the river dried up and they walked across on dry ground. They came up against Jericho, the first great walled city. And they were wondering how in the world could they defeat that? And they walked around it. And it came to pass, the Bible says, that the walls came tumbling down. There are just so many ways in which we see that happening that we know that whatever we're facing today is going to change. And so we have to realize the presence of God, and we have to have exercise our faith that God is going to eventually move us beyond this, and life is going to continue.
Yeah, that's so good. How would you apply just that verse and that concept to just our present crisis? How would you say it really applies?
Well, we have to look at history. You look at our history, you can make some comparisons, and then you can keep things on the level where they ought to be. We didn't have media back in 1917, 1918. And videos of everything going on all around the world in an instantaneous moment. But the deadliest flu that we've ever had, that's what it's called by some people, was the Spanish flu. And it came out in 1917, right when the World War I was ending, and all of our soldiers were coming back from being in Europe and fighting the First World War. And they brought with them what is called the Spanish flu, because it started in Spain and spread all over Europe and everything. 500 million people in the world got the flu that year. And 50 million plus, they're not even sure how many, but at least 50 million died as a result of that. Now, that's a real genuine flu. But it came to pass that flu ended, and America got back into the business of growing and developing. All right. And then we faced a civil war. It was, brother against brother, things happening all over the country, the ugliness of that war. And we lost a lot of people, but it came to pass that civil war ended and slavery was abolished. And so even in the midst of that terrible time and the tragic losses, things began to happen. And World War II, Hitler came within just a few battles of literally winning that war. They were in the United States. They were right off the East Coast with submarines during that time frame. Very easily could have, if not for the leadership of Winston Churchill and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, things could be totally different. But it came to pass that the introduction, the leadership of those men plus the introduction of the United States into the war saved the free world along that line. And then the Cold War and the Soviet Union, all of those things, it came to pass that they dissolved, the Soviet Union even dissolved in my lifetime along the way. So Kennedy was shot, turned the world upside down. Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., all of them killed in the same time frame. And I can remember that so well as a young man working in a secular job the day that I heard that Martin Luther King Jr. had been shot, and seeing that the world was in turmoil. Everything stopped for a short time, but it came to pass that America got over that, got beyond that. The Civil Rights Act was passed, and a lot of positive things took place, and America now is stronger than it has ever been. So when you look at history, you see that no matter what the bad things are that come up in your life, they will pass. The question isn't, are you going to have problems? Are you going to have difficulties? The question is, how are you going to respond to those problems? It's our reaction to those issues that come up in life, like the virus, that determine how we personally grow and how the nation turns.
Yeah. Do you see, so, kind of in your lifetime, going back to Cold War, civil rights movement and all of that stuff, are there similarities, or is this a little bit different? Do you feel like, this is, because for me, like, I've never, my generation has never gone through anything like this, and so I know we haven't shut down quite like this probably in your lifetime, but is maybe the fear there that maybe you experienced at that time, or is this at another level? And is, we can look at history, we can see how all of that has happened, but when you're in the middle of this crisis like we are right now, it's kind of hard to find God in it. So I know I just asked about 10 questions there, but is God in this crisis, and what similarities do you see in what you're feeling and what people are feeling today that you went through back then?
Well, the closest thing to think about in history is 9/11.
Yeah.
You remember, you will remember, what happened. Most everybody will. It hasn't been that long ago, but the world changed because of that crisis. You see, we've had dozens of crises in the process along the way, but it's how does the world respond? And right now we're responding in many ways in a panic mode. I've been to Kroger's in the last couple of days. I mean, shelves are empty there. And I've never seen that before. Well, how does that happen? My friend Bud Holland wrote about it. He said he went to pick up some things, and toilet paper, he said, and one guy in line, they restricted to 2. One guy had eight packages. Who needs the 8 packages of that? And they made him take them back. It's a panic mode. And of course, we have the media now. The media, instantaneous insight into what's happened in Tanzania. You don't just hear about it, we see it with the videos and all that. And everybody is thinking, how panicky it is. We've had some terrible things. In that Spanish flu, 675,000 people died in America. That's a 1/3 of the population of the world contracted that flu. 1/3. That's 1 out of every 3. We don't see anything like that today because of our health and medicines and science that we've come up on the way. So it's different in the sense that the media is great, but there are so many people that just take it to extremes and panic instead of just being calm and saying, all right, here's what we have to do. The one ingredient in this COVID-19 virus is that we don't really know how it's transmitted, but it is so quickly and easily transmitted to somebody else that we're afraid, and we've gone maybe a little bit overboard. But in the beginning, you have to do a little something, a little extreme, maybe, But I think we're getting to the point where we're beginning to see, okay, in Tennessee, we have about 600 cases, maybe 900 up there now, and there's only been 2 deaths. And so 98% of the people that are getting the virus are overcoming it. Now, you can go back to 2018, 19, no, 17 and 18, and you can see that 34 million caught the flu here in America just 1 year ago. 490,000 people were hospitalized, and 34,200 people died of the flu back then. All right, nothing like that's happening now.
Mm.
But it didn't get all the pandemic scare to it. But more people died back then than we've even come close to in America today. So we have to back up just a little bit and take just some necessary steps of hygiene and have a little time period here where we allow things to happen, hopefully get warmer, and things are going to change. This too will pass.
Yeah, that's good. That's good perspective. Wise words there. Another question is, where is God in the midst of crisis? Sometimes he's a little bit harder to find or to see because of the panic that you mentioned. But is he there? Where is he? How do we find him? How would you respond to that?
Well, if you can't see God every day of your life, then you have eye problems to go along with your faith problems, because God is everywhere. Where is God during this day? Did you hear about the NBA players that are giving their own personal money to be able to help the workers at the arenas where they play to be able to maintain their job? That's where God's in that place. Did you hear about the woman who's supposed to get some of this $1,000 that everybody's going to be given along the way? She said, I'm going to give mine to somebody who really needs it more than I do. That's what God is. I think that's a great idea. I think all of us who maybe are a little more stable in our finances ought to be looking around to be able to help somebody else, because there's more of them around now than normal. And I think we ought to be doing that all the time. But we ought to be looking out to be able to help. That's where God is. God's in that woman's life. And God's with those doctors who are giving themselves tirelessly to be able to put themselves in danger of contracting the flu and dying. And they're out there working. That's where God is. He's all over the hospitals. He's all over the government, though sometimes it doesn't seem like it. But he's all over that. See, here's the point. You can face anything in life. And this has been my philosophy for a long time. If you just remember 2 things about God. One is that God loves you. Sometimes you may feel like God doesn't love you, but the truth is God so loved the world that he gave his son. If he loved you that much, that it's going to take, nothing's going to be able to stop that kind of love for him. That's as bad as it gets. All right. And then that God's in control. I know sometimes it doesn't seem like it. I know sometimes it seems like that everything is just loose and everything is coming apart in the world. That's never true. God never says, boy, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that was going to happen. He never says anything like that. He always is ahead of us. And the thing that happens is sometimes God just wants us to change some things.
Yeah.
And to me, what I see happening now is people are readjusting their priorities. Work used to be what we worshiped, right?
Yeah.
Job and just keep going no matter what. We worship money. Okay, the money is now is not as important as our health, and we worship just a lot of things. And now we can't go to the movies. I don't care how much money you have. I mean, you have to sit home and watch it on TV. It's okay, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And so when all of those things start happening, people start changing. And after 9/11, after the Civil War, after the First and Second World Wars, life changed. And the one thing that you can count on that's going to happen after this is the same thing that happened after 9/11 for those that are younger. And that is, things are going to change. I never had to go through a long line to be able to fly a plane before, to fly in a plane. And now, after 9/11, we have to stand in line and go through with hundreds of other people to be able just to get on an airplane, and all kinds of safety things and all that. I mean, it's what I've experienced, you know, in the losses that I've had over the last couple of years. There's a new normal. I don't know really what that new normal is, but after a crisis in your life, you get back to normal, but your normal was new. You have liked the old normal because you've gotten used to it and you had what you wanted, but now you come to a new normal. And that's what you have to get back to. And you're the one that controls your future. You make your choices today, and then your choices make you tomorrow. And so you have to be willing to make adjustments, because there will be changes. There will be changes in our government. There will be changes in the way we do almost everything in our society, and we will never forget this time.
Yeah.
And we'll always be thinking, could it happen again? Could it be worse? Because most of the young people in your generation, Trent, you've never quite experienced anything like that. And whatever that generation wanted was always there. I'll go down to the store and get it. You know, you never worried about food. People in your generation, they never worried about food. They're going to get it somewhere, somehow. Well, there are certain things we can't get now. And it's temporary. It too shall pass, but you'll never forget it. And that's the idea, that you need to begin to think about what's really the priorities. I think maybe what I've come to right now is all of this is a priority test for us. This is a priority test, and it's time for all of us to stop using everything and blessing and being blessed by so much. We've been given so much that we just begin to take it for granted. The easiest thing to do is take for granted a wife or a husband or a parent or a job or a church, and so we take it for granted until something like this happens. See, after 9/11, you know what everybody wanted to do instantaneously? They want to get home. They want to get to their family. Right? And so this is a priority test, and every crisis is. You know, every time you go through a crisis, you start saying, I wish I had, I should have, why this, and all that. And so you have to just kind of take this priority test. And what should your priorities be according to God? Well, it ought to be God first. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. That doesn't leave anything else. You give him all your heart, all your life, everything about you, you give that to him. And then the second priority, if you're married, should be your spouse. Not your children, should be your spouse. And treat them in such a way. And then your children, your family comes after that. And that ought to be, and then the church or your ministry, whatever that ministry may be. Not talking about clergy, not talking about pastors, talking about every Christian is a minister. And so that's your priority. And then whatever you put after that, that's your preference.
Yeah.
And if you prefer to watch ball games like I do on TV, then you'll spend a lot of time doing it. But that's what we do. So this is a priority test. So I would just encourage everybody listening to us, what are your priorities? And the way you can find your priorities is get your checkbook out, get your calendar out, see where you're going, what you're doing, where you're spending your time, and then get your Bible out and see how many pages are still stuck together. And how much you're reading. And then you'll begin to discover what your priorities are. And I guarantee you, some of you are going to be surprised.
That's good.
Because of what you give your time, your money, your attention, and your talents to.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. That's just such a great perspective. It's a great priority challenge for us. And as you mentioned, our generation just has not experienced anything like this. And so we really have been so blessed. And so I think today, as we end our time, we can pray that we would, in fact, be strengthened, strong, and steadfast, as 1 Peter 5:10 was telling us, and that we would accept the idea that this too shall pass. God's going to bring us through this. Yeah. And so thank you so much for spending time. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me just say, I don't know why this happened. I'm just giving my opinion about how it's affecting me. I don't know why. But what I do know is it came to pass. It didn't come to stay. It came to pass, and it will.
It will. Thank you so much, Dad. I appreciate you stepping in. And how can people find you? How can people read more? I know you're writing some now online. How can they find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook with just Ron Stewart.
Okay.
And my daily devotional out of my book is on there every day. You can get it. My website is drronstewart.com. And you can get on there and check up on whatever I'm writing and all that. And I'm trying to get more involved in that.
Yeah.
It's hard to away from my generation. I'm used to being face to face, and I don't really, right now. I'm face to face with a lot of people.
Yep, you are, and we figured out Instagram Live, and so today's a big day.
Yes.
So hey, thanks again, and we love you. I know the FC family, everybody tuning in loves you, and that was such a great word. Have a great day. I'm going to pray.